Hi, I'm Natalie Jill, fat loss expert turned high performance coach. When odds are stacked against us, how do we shift and create everything from nothing? How do we level up when we aren't feeling it yet or we've had a big setback? On this podcast, I'll be talking to some of the most inspiring and courageous men and women on this planet who at their worst learned how to achieve success greater than they ever dreamed possible, leveling up and creating everything from nothing. Today, I've got my friend Brooke Thomas here, and I've been really excited to talk to her for a while and share her story on my podcast. We met a couple years ago at a mastermind. We got to talking, but what really drew me into wanting to interview her is when I was going through my basal cell carcinoma on my face this last year, and I was super scared. I learned from her that she had an even more powerful story of when she was pregnant and diagnosed with stage 3 melanoma years ago, and how that helped her pivot her entire life, her whole career, everything, her whole purpose. So I've been dying to talk with her today about all those things. Thanks so much for being here today, Brooke.
Thank you so much for being here. Yes, you said it all. I can't wait to dive in.
Yes. So let's back up because I'm assuming, well, when this happened to you, set the stage for who were you at the time that this was happening to you when you were diagnosed?
I was a complete people pleaser that was doing what everybody told me I should do with my life. You know, I was a business major working the corporate job, had my real estate license on the side, and not really feeling fulfilled, but on paper, it looked good. And I thought that people were proud of me because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. And I always say I was a serial people pleaser. So I kind of really didn't know who I was, because I think when you're a people pleaser and you grow into that, you forget who you are because you're just trying to make everybody else happy. And then I got married and got pregnant. I was 26 years old. So this was 16 years ago.
Okay.
And first trimester of pregnancy. And I find out that I have stage 3 melanoma.
How did you find out? Like, take us back to that, because especially at age 26, you don't think skin cancer.
I know. Well, I grew up in South Florida, and I was the girl that always had a spray tan, always went into, the tanning beds. I had the fair freckly skin and tried to always, have the skin like my friends that were Peruvian, all of my girlfriends that were, that had the baby oil. I would do it all. Okay. Just
totally
trying to get closer to that. Okay.
Yeah.
And again, South Florida, I mean, I did have blisters and burnt. And I mean, I did all of the things that, that would come to this outcome, right? Like that you hear not to do.
Did you know you were high risk doing it? Like, did you know as you were doing it, like this could be dangerous for me? Or was it like that's something that happens to older people? Did you used to put that out of your head?
I think it was more, I did not know I was high risk. I just believed that, like, you know what, I'm young, it is what it is. Like, I just want to look good in the moment. I always just, and that's part of my journey that my story that I'll get into, where, I used to be the girl that just wanted to lose weight to fit into the skinny jeans, or I would do whatever it took to, burn my skin because I thought that I would look better, all of that surface stuff that I grew up with, being in South Florida, and just trying to keep up with what I thought beauty was, what I thought that was, which was, definitely not the person I am today. But, this is years and years of growing up, feeling like that. And, again, I got married and I moved to North Carolina because I went to college in North Carolina. So I was living in North Carolina, met my husband, got married. We actually ended up living on Lake Norman, and we had a boat and we went out in the sun, still doing the same thing, but mostly, spray tan by then. But I would still not be afraid of a burn, just kind of like that light, crisp pink, hot pink with a spray tan, always was my jam. Okay. And I got pregnant, and what happened was there was a mole kind of it was on the side of my back, like towards the back where I couldn't see it, but it was just slightly to the back, but like on my side to the back. Okay. And it was always itching, and I kept like itching it. And I just thought I didn't know what it was. I didn't really pay attention to it. I didn't look at it. My husband started seeing it and being concerned because we were on the lake, and he could see it from the back. And he's like, that just looks weird, because it turned half black and like half hot pink. And I just kept thinking it was a scab. Like I was just itching it. Right. And I didn't go to the doctor regularly, you know, the dermatologist. It was just kind of like, you know, I just wasn't that concerned. And when I went in for my OB check, they saw it immediately, and immediately they were concerned. And I was just like, oh, it's no big deal. And they're like, no, I'm pretty concerned about this. So I literally was in the hospital, and they would not let me leave. I had to go to the oncologist.
So this was not a normal, like when you go to the dermatologist, say biopsy and wait. This was like, we're worried you're going to the hospital.
Yes. And I didn't know this at the time, but when you're pregnant, melanoma, especially skin cancer, it can actually spread hard and fast because of the hormones. Wow. And so this is a typical thing. I think because I was pregnant, it came out, you know, brighter, faster. Like that's why, you know, it kind of sped up like what would have normally happened. Yeah. And so, yeah, it was a scary moment because I was there and it was like, hey, we're extremely concerned about this, and we're going to actually walk you to the oncologist. Like we're taking you straight to the oncologist. And they had a dermatologist in the like all kind of in the same hospital group. Yeah. That they would not let me leave. They're like, we've seen this before and we think we know what it is, type of thing. And I was like, wait, what? Like, this is crazy. And it just one thing after another, it turned into me being there for several hours, blood work, it being biopsied, having an emergency, like, return, you know, usually it takes weeks or days, and they wanted to get results back very quickly. And they literally brought us to a room and they sat us down and they said, okay, according to your blood work, this is your situation, and you're not in a good situation. We've seen this before because of your pregnancy and because of your blood work based on your age and what we're seeing, you know, they gave us like the scope of the margins and that it was in stage 3. And they all sat down and gave me all of these different scenarios of all of the women that have been in this situation, like this case, you know, these studies, or not studies, like real women. And these are my options. And it was, we would recommend that you have chemotherapy and have an abortion. Like that's
oh my gosh. Whoa.
Yes. And they literally spelled that out. And they said, you know, this cancer spreads hard and fast. And, you know, you're pregnant. And so this is going to be your best case scenario if you want to live. Like that's really what they told me.
Whoa. And so what did your brain do at that point? Like, did you consider that? Like, where did you go?
No, I was in complete shock. I'm the type of person, I'm not anymore, but you know, it's been 16 years. Mm-hmm. Like I was the type of person that just, if anything ever traumatic or bad happened to me, I'm very good at like saying, okay, this is not really happening. So let's just like pretend it's not happening. Let's like talk about it later, you know?
Put it under the rug. Let's push it under the rug.
So I was like, no, like we'll just figure this out after the baby comes. I'm just going to go ahead and go home. And like, we're not going to do that. Like I'm going to be, you know, everything's going to be fine. And they were like, no, I don't think you understand. I literally now I have a lot of doctors in my family down in South Florida. We were having things rushed there so their people could look at the same thing. And, you know, I wanted to make sure that this was really what they were saying. And every doctor was talking to each other. And literally they were like, I don't think you understand the urgency of what needs to take place, because you have not been, like, basically I had not been, you know, taking care of myself the way I thought I was compared to what I should have been doing as far as skin checks and just, you know, keeping on track, like for what was going on. You know, it had been a while. I mean, probably had gone to the doctor when I got pregnant. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Because I thought that I was super healthy, you know, but my version of health was completely different to what I found out health really was, right? Like I had to totally redefine what health really was. So
how did they at that point, like, do they know if it's metastasized, or do they know where it's spread to, or what information are they giving you?
They gave me information about the margins and how deep and wide that it was, that they believed it was already. Okay. And they said the only other, because I said there has to be another option. I'm not getting rid of this baby and I'm not having chemotherapy right now. Like that's not happening. So what is my other option? And they said the other option is you can go into immediate surgery and we can cut around, we can go as deep and wide as we can to get around where we think it is.
Okay.
But they said you cannot have anesthetic because you're in your first trimester of pregnancy.
Whoa. So not even like local anesthetic?
So they did give me topical lidocaine, but that's the only thing they could give me, topical lidocaine. But I ended up having 50 stitches, cauterized me. 5 people had to hold me down.
Oh,
I had to put something in my mouth. It was like old school, like, I had to put something in my mouth for the pain. I was like, okay, fine, let's do this. Like, let's go. And, I mean, it wasn't like that fast, but after hours and it was a couple days, actually, I came back and they really wouldn't let me leave because I was at danger for them telling me. And every day that went by, because skin cancer can spread hard and fast, they told me that, every day that goes by, they're liable because it could spread harder and faster. And they, again, would lay out all of the different scenarios. So I literally, went through surgery. I mean, I was, I
must
felt,
have been a horrible pain, I would imagine.
It was the most excruciating, horrible thing ever. But there was something that just happened to me in that moment. Like, I mean, I'm squeezing this ball in my mouth, like for pain. People are holding me down. I'm just taking my mind to another place going, okay, I'm just going to get rid of this and I'll be okay. And the baby will be okay. And it just is what it is. Like, I just kind of put my mind somewhere else. It was crazy and it was painful. The 50 stitches on the side, the pain was not even half the amount of pain that happened in the aftermath. Like, to have 50 stitches on your side in your first trimester of pregnancy, what happened was when I started to grow, like it was a mess. Like, it was keloiding, like all the stitches would start to stretch every time I did anything. Like it turned into this huge scar that looked literally like a shark attack because like this, the 50 stitches just would spread or open or, again, it keloided, it was hot pink. Like it just was horrible. Like,
wow.
And again, back then, now after that traumatic moment, of course I was more concerned about my health, my baby's health, my future, but I was still a little bit more concerned also about the vanity of what that scar was going to do for the rest of my life. Like, I'm never going to wear a bikini. I'm never going to, I kind of felt sorry for myself for, a little while. But that moment in time definitely took me down a path to rediscover what health was, rediscover who I really was, and really taught me how to pivot, taught me how I could either choose to stay in darkness, depression, sadness, feel sorry for myself, or pick myself up, learn and grow, and didn't know that was going to happen. But that's basically...
So I have a lot of questions about that. But before I even get into that, because I have so many questions about all the things, I'm curious, did you ever have to go back and do the chemo after your baby was born? Did they have to screen you?
Well, yes. Okay. So I had to go back every 3 months, they said, for the rest of my life, which turned into every 6 months, which turned into every year. I was informed that, all of my skin issues from the sun and from what the damage I had done would start to come out as over the years, remember I was 26, I'm 42 now. Yeah. So since then, several things have, come out, nothing close to melanoma, but a lot of basal cells, a lot of different things that I've been prepared for. But the doctors did tell me back then that I probably would not live past 40. They were yes. And I mean, again, they were really harsh with me.
I can't stand when doctors do that. Like they put this belief in your mind and then, you're lucky you're powerful.
Totally.
And believe that.
No. And you know what? That's what shifted everything for me because I do have a lot of holistic doctors in my family, naturopaths, chiropractors, and doctors. And I started to really lean in and learn about how we can rebuild our body, like our cells regenerate by what we put in our body. And I was so determined mentally and physically to shift and change the outcome that they told me I would have, that it really did transform my entire life, my outlook on everything. And it's why I show up the way I do. It's why I live my life the way I do,
So it's amazing listening to this because I think a lot of people in your situation would not have chosen your route. They would have had the abortion. A lot of people, and a lot of people would have done the chemotherapy, and not that would have fixed the problem. Like, and you chose a very different method, and it's wild that you haven't had another melanoma since, and you are clearly beating the doctor's odds with that.
That's right. Yes. And I think it's because, one of my younger brothers, he is a functional medicine doctor and a chiropractor, and he started just feeding me so much information from some of the top natural cancer doctors back then. This is 16 years ago. Like, we are so more informed now. But I was so intrigued and engaged in the information I was learning about sugar and fake foods, and like what some of the things I was doing could be affecting me and my health and my future health. So I got so into it, and I was so determined to make sure that I at least fought for my healthier body. Like, wow. I was so determined to do that, not only for my daughter that ended up being born, but just my future health. Because in my mind, I thought, okay, if they say 40, then I've got a good, 15, 20 years. It's so crazy to think I thought like that, but I did back then. Now I tell people now that is not my story anymore. I mean, that's not even on my radar anymore. Like, I know that, my job is to live my life to the fullest, make the impact I need to make while I'm here. And we never know when our life is over.
Right.
But, it really caused me to reevaluate even my thoughts, the way I lived, the way I spoke about myself to myself. I had to go down this whole journey to really understand that the people pleaser in me and all of the things I was doing were, could be adding to, the sickness, or adding to, anything coming back in my body. Because our thoughts are so powerful. Our mind is so powerful. And of course I went down a road for a little while where I felt sorry for myself, and I said the negative things, and I wanted everyone to feel sorry for me, I should say. But I also got to a point where I'm like, nobody else is going to come in and like save me. So I have to take responsibility. And I just learned at a young age, and I say young because I think that mid to late 20s is young to really learn to take responsibility for everything. Sure. And so that's why, I am the way I am in my 40s,
So you took on your health, you started changing that, you started changing your mindset around things. When did you decide, like, I'm not going to stick on corporate, I'm going to create my own thing? Did you have that vision for what you do now then?
So what happened was, like, immediately when this all went down and I was in pain, sitting on the couch with these bandages on the side, crying every day, feeling sorry for myself, I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm not going back to work. Like, I'm not, I mean, thankfully I had a husband where I didn't need to. I've just always loved to work. Like, I love it. But I knew in that moment, I'm like, I am so unfulfilled. Like, I am not going to walk into an office, a corporate setting every day with these bandages on my side. And I wasn't fulfilled. And it was like a very awakening moment for me. I just started to get really excited about health and nutrition. And I became certified in nutrition. And in my mind, I was like, I am going to change the world. I'm going to be the woman, the mom that, stands for, health and wellness. And in my little town, that I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is little compared to where I live now in California, I kind of turned it into this crazy time of my life where I learned so much, but then I realized there was not enough available to make it simple. So I started getting all of these creative ideas to simplify health, like healthy living back then. Because again, back then, there wasn't all of the easy, there wasn't a way to find simple, easy, healthy. Right. And I was not good in the kitchen. Like, I was the one paralyzed in the kitchen. My husband likes to cook. And I was just like, I don't know. I would buy these beautiful cookbooks, and I would have all of these huge plans to like make these beautiful meals. And it was so difficult. Like, I was like, I don't even know. I would try to make it, and it was bad. But then I kind of got into my groove because I was so determined, and I started to simplify it, and I made like 5 ingredients or less, and it was super healthy and delicious. And then I started to get, these visions of doing this with my daughter and, helping other moms and helping at school. And I kind of I did turn it into a business. For about 10 years, I was on a local NBC show as like their healthy lifestyle expert. Mm-hmm. And I started making like all of these recipes. I turned them into little cute cookbooks for moms that needed help to simplify. Then it turned into more of a, I'm helping moms that are busy, like busy working moms or busy moms that don't know how to kind of throw healthy, quick, simple meals together that can also be delicious. So for about 10 years, I really focused a lot of my energy on that, just trying to help the simple or just the busy mom be simple with their health and nutrition. It really drove me to get a lot of traction creating products and different programs that I ended up selling to corporations and schools. Mm-hmm. And it was crazy. I never expected to step into that. But through that, I ended up really meeting so many women that I ended up counseling or mentoring or coaching in nutrition and wellness and health. Mm-hmm. And then I really found out what the deeper underlying issue was. And that's where I really started to be intrigued with helping women kind of uncover what's really going on so that we can make better choices. So I know it was like a really long answer.
Uncover what's really going on. Is that like your underlying thing with the people pleasing, or was it with the underlying thing with the health? Like, what is it that you mean when you say
yes? So I believe that like every person has a story or multiple stories of some sort of pain or shame or traumatic event or, something that has caused them to shut down or to not live out their dreams, their purpose, their desire in this life. And something happened. There's usually something that happens to us. And, it doesn't have to be so traumatic, but most people have traumatic stories or painful stories that stopped them in their tracks from the time they were little or all the way up to teenage years or, I find that when we get stuck there and we're, a lot of women that are very out of alignment with what they want to be doing, or they're very lethargic or tired or sad, it usually ends up that they're just not living the life that they want. And it's caused a lot of pain, sadness, being tired. And when we uncover who we used to be before that thing happened, right? And we really start to identify who we really are, not who people wanted us to be or who we had to become to cover up that thing or, who we really desire to be in this life. I believe that's when we really start to live and we really start to create and we really start to find our people that we can impact.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I started again with the health and wellness because I found that so many women that were not making the right choices for their body or the right food choices. There was always this excuse, but it really was underneath that. It was really because of something they were covering up from something that happened. And when they really got real and they really identified it, there was so much relief. It was like chains that were, strangling them, and like they could just like release it once and for all and talk about it and let go of the pain or shame or be identified, for it and just not be judged for it. It's like, I don't know. It's just like all the heaviness just starts to lift, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? Like we all have stories.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now because a lot of women, they hear you say this, but they're like, well, but my story is not that interesting. Or is that something you help women dig out that story? Or is it more the belief in them that you're doing? Like what is that process?
Yeah. So usually most women will say that at the beginning, like, I don't really have a story. And for me with my current business right now is Live Out Loud. And I help women do this, but focus more towards business, or it could be health, lifestyle, family, because I think it's all related, but really I'm focused on business. But then again, we've got to get it right everywhere else too. Not right, but pure and like honest. And so I believe everyone has a story. And if we go back, we usually have some sort of story. And again, if we're not talking traumatic, they might think it's not traumatic, but when I go all the way back to something that affected them, I've uncovered stories in women that it could feel small to them if we're talking like if we're comparing to like a very traumatic story of like maybe rape or, like a cancer story, a traumatic cancer story or something that happened to them that's super traumatic. If we're comparing that to somebody that maybe just got made fun of in school, that could feel to a woman like, oh, well, that's not really a big deal. But then when they start to uncover getting made fun of in school and what that did to them at that time, being called a name or having a teacher call them out, then they didn't think they were smart enough. Then they started covering up because they didn't think they were smart. And then they didn't think they could create because they were never smart enough when they were actually super brilliant, but they were carrying that one moment that happened to them and they were carrying it into all of these other seasons of their life. I've even uncovered this woman that came to one of my retreats. Beautiful on the outside, well-spoken, looks like she has everything going for her. And there was one moment in time that she was actually really groomed to be, like, she was even working on Dateline. She was groomed to be a newscaster and actually be like pretty big deal at Dateline. And there was one man behind the camera that said something to her that shifted her the next 10 years of her life. Wow. And it caused her to get a nose job. It caused her to have some certain things, that she did to her body that caused her to start hiding, feeling ashamed, feeling not enough. And then she went down a totally different path in her life. And then she didn't realize, though, she didn't think that was very traumatic. But then when she really went back and started, really walking, okay, when did that shift for me? When did that change for me? So she was one of the ones in the room saying, well, I don't really have a story, when everybody else was talking about a traumatic story, So that's kind of where I'm going with that.
Yeah. I believe that everybody has a story. And I also believe that stories are what make us connect to others, and stories are what make us authentic and real. And stories, if we really lean into them, do reveal a lot about our purpose. I believe that.
Yeah. And I also believe that nobody can manipulate your story. Your story is your story and nobody can manipulate that. And I even think that great stories too, like we all have a timeline, from our past where we also have really great stories. Maybe when we've been recognized for something for the first time or seen for the first time or promoted for the first time into something that we worked really hard for. And that shifts us too into another phase. Usually my stories have been like, it's more of like the traumatic, like, let me get your attention and maybe now you'll shift. That's really what happened to me. But I also think there's stories of, triumph and like again, a lot of women just want to be seen or heard. And that's when they start to shift into a new place. But yeah, our stories are the reason why we do what we do, or why we should do, what we do. Right.
Yeah,
it makes it more, like you said, relatable. And especially in the marketplace, if you have a product service, you've got to tie that to like why you're doing that. Otherwise it's like flat, like nobody. Yeah.
So today, does melanoma scare you anymore? Skin cancer scare you?
No, I paused because I do still have moments where I get just more frustrated because especially with something like on my face and what they tell me they want to do, I get more frustrated with like how much I want to do and I want to accomplish. And I talk so much and like talking and speaking is like what I do. And for my business and my life. And I have a lot of expression and I love to love people well. And when they start talking about cutting areas on my face and I might look deformed or I might have this scar around my mouth, I get more frustrated, and upset because I really look back at all the years I didn't stand for what I stand for now. And I didn't open up my mouth and I didn't serve the way I wanted to serve. And I just get frustrated around the timeline of like, okay, how much longer do I really have? But I really don't go there that often. It's usually just when I have like a dermatology appointment and they tell me something and I'm like, are you kidding me? Because you know how bad it also hurts. When you get cut open or something removed anywhere, it's just like burning. It's like bleeding. It's like you have to have these bandages. It's just like uncomfortable. And when you're in the zone and you're in a groove and you're serving people and you have businesses going on, it's just frustrating. And but other than that, I don't live in fear anymore. I really have come to terms with like, I really believe that, you know, when my time is up, my time is up. So I am going to do everything I possibly can to live my best life and live the healthiest, happiest life that I can. And I just believe my faith is so strong. I just believe that God knows my timeline. So I'm not going to worry about my timeline being shortened anymore, you know? So I made it past 40. So I was like, hey, you know what? And I did used to envision, like I would lay in bed and just literally put my hands on certain parts of my body that they would tell me, you know, the cancer would return, or they thought the cancer was returning. And I would just lay and envision a healthier body. And I would just pray for a healthier body. I would pray that my cells would be regenerated by what I put in my body. And I just envisioned that. And I just believed that. And there were many times where I would go back and they were like, oh, there really is nothing here. And so I do believe in the power of prayer. I believe in the power of your mindset and your belief and just, you know, your vision, because it's worked for me, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, no, it's what I notice about you is just this complete, like you have this motivation that never ends. And I'm assuming that comes a lot from this experience of like, we don't know how long we'll be here, or being told that you are going to have choices.
Yes. So, you know, I know you have a daughter, and having two daughters now that are 12 and 15, like I just got really clear about my footprint here. Like, you know, when I do leave this earth, like what will they say about me, and what kind of strength can I give them to take responsibility for their life, no matter what happens around them? And I'll be honest with you, with everything going on in the world right now, I have been more motivated, more excited, more just energetic through this time, because I already know the opposite. Like if I'm not like that and I choose to sit on the couch and watch the news, or I choose to just watch Netflix and, you know, eat bad food every day, like I actually already know what the outcome will be for me mentally, emotionally. I already know that outcome. So I always choose the opposite, because I would prefer that, you know, my commitment to my life, my commitment to my kids, my commitment to my happiness, I would rather that, you know, keep going every day, instead of just being motivated by like an outcome that is around emotions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah. And it's just what it excites me. It drives me to like help other people feel like they have a purpose. I feel like everybody has a purpose, and so many people just let their dreams die too soon because they feel like they're not important and they're not valuable. And I'm always like, everyone is, like, everyone's one of a kind. There's nobody else that can match you. But you just have to show up as you. And that takes a lot of work for a lot of women. You know, it took me a lot of work. So I'm sure you too, right? Like, you know, just our stories are stories of coming into who we really are and being accepting of who we are. And that's everything to me. So that's what I fight for, like, every day.
I think as especially somebody who's approaching 50, as we're middle-aged, this really starts getting evident. But the gift that you had was getting shown this so young, which almost give you a jump start on things. So, because I think a lot of women in their 20s, you included, had this not happened, we don't look at our demise. We don't look at that.
Right.
So in a way, I mean, it didn't feel like a gift at the time, but you were almost gifted that. Then you had a jump start on seeing this and living to its fullest.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I didn't even know. I wouldn't have been able to articulate. It's not like I walked around and I was like, I'm a people pleaser and I don't know who I am. Like, if you knew me back then, nobody would have ever said that. And I would have never said that. I didn't really uncover that until I was faced with death. Like, I didn't really uncover that until I really was faced with, like, oh, like, I could actually die. Like, am I really living? Like, do I really know who I am? And I wouldn't have even been able to say, I don't know who I am. But I went to therapy because I was just in a bad place, and they were able to uncover, like, do you even know who Brooke is? Like, what does Brooke really want? What does Brooke really want to do? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I want to do whatever anybody wants me to do to make them happy.
Right.
that's kind of what I did. And I thought that was happiness. And it really taught me so much like about myself and helped me to really understand that, my voice was important and I did have, a purpose to live out. And at the time, again, my purpose has always become like what I'm involved in at the time. Like,
sure.
I think those 10 years, it was all health, wellness, nutrition. I brought my kids into it. But now it's more adult women in business. And so I just kind of go with the next season of my life. I just think that that's really me stepping into me, is just really owning who I am in the season of life I'm in and taking full advantage of that and not feeling like I have to do this other thing because that's where I started. I'm like all about shifting and pivoting. Like I'm all about pivoting. That's why, again, it's time. It's not comfortable. Like I wouldn't choose what we're going through, but I'm like, okay, pivot again. What do we need to do?
I get that.
I know you're the queen of pivot too, right?
Yeah, but I don't look at it as pivot anymore. I just look at it as just being really in tune with what people need right now. Always. If I just look at is what I'm offering or where I'm focused serving others, that answers that question. So it doesn't really become a pivot. It becomes just, I'm just fully focused on how I can serve in this time.
Yes.
Whatever that
I
time
love
is.
that. That's good.
And with what I'm going through and know. Well, this has been awesome, Brooke. This is so helpful. And now it's making a lot of sense when you saw me going through my Mohs surgery, my basal cell. You said, I don't know that I want to deal with that again. I have another one I need to deal with, but I don't want to.
I know. And I literally, I still do need to deal with that. And I'm still needing to have another conversation with you about it. Because I actually was going to figure that out like right before this whole thing happened.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of sitting on it, which is not smart, I know. But they told me I could still sit on it a little bit longer because, as you know,
basal cell is very different than melanoma. Basal cell is slower growing. You do have time with that.
Right.
Melanoma is pretty urgent.
Exactly. So, well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, this has been awesome. Where can people find you, Brooke? Where do you want them to follow you, find you, all the things?
Yes. Okay. My website's just brookethomas.com. And on Instagram, I'm Live Out Loud Brooke. And I have a podcast, The Live Out Loud Show.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Brooke.
Thank you.
Thanks for leveling up with us today. Please share this episode if you found it helpful so others can join in. And don't forget to hit that subscribe so you don't miss out on future shows. And if you would leave me a 5-star review, I appreciate those so much. I read all of them, and it's how I know that I'm giving you information that you find valuable. And come interact with me over on Instagram at NatalieJillFit. I read all the direct messages and comments over there. Make it a great day, creating everything from nothing.